The Woman in the Dust. The sun was sinking low over Red River Town, throwing long orange shadows across the dirt street. The wind carried the dry taste of dust and horses, and the faint creak of the saloon sign mixed with a lonely harmonica tune from somewhere down the road. It was another quiet evening in the middle of nowhere, the kind where everyone knew everyone, and strangers carried their stories in silence. At the far end of Main Street stood Miller's General Store, the only place for 50 miles where a man could buy anything from beans to bullets. Inside, behind the counter, old Mr. Miller counted coins with the same tired rhythm he had for 20 years. The door creaked open, and a young woman stepped in. Her dress was faded blue, the hem frayed from miles of walking. Her hair, once golden, now clung to her face with dust. There was pride in her eyes, but it flickered like the last light before nightfall. She moved slowly to the counter, clutching a few dull coins in her hand. "Evening, miss," said Miller, glancing up. "What can I get you?" "Just a little flour, sir. Maybe some beans if this'll cover it." She placed the coins on the counter, 4 small pieces of hope that barely made a sound when they landed. Miller looked down, sighed, and rubbed the back of his neck. "Wish I could help, Mississippi. But prices went up again since the wagons stopped coming. Ain't enough there for both." Her face fell, though she tried to hide it behind a small nod. "Then just the flour, please." He weighed the bag slowly, then hesitated. "You're still a few cents short." "I can't. It's all I have," she said quietly. "Please, it's just me now." The old man's eyes softened, but rules were rules in a town that barely survived. He pushed the coins gently back toward her. "I'm sorry." Her shoulders slumped. She gathered the coins in shaking hands and walked toward the door. As the bell above it jingled, her breath caught. Outside, the town looked colder, emptier, like it had already decided she didn't belong. She stepped into the dirt street, blinking back the sting in her eyes. That's when she bumped into him. He was tall, the brim of his hat casting a shadow over his face. A coat of trail dust clung to his shoulders, and his boots looked like they'd walked through half the frontier. He smelled faintly of leather, horse, and campfire smoke. "Whoa there," he said, steadying her with a firm hand. "You all right, ma'am?" She looked up quickly. "Ah, yes. I'm fine." He caught the tremor in her voice, the way she turned her face just enough to hide the tears gathering at the edge of her lashes. "You sure?" he asked softly. She nodded, clutching her small purse to her chest. "Please excuse me." He watched her walk away, slow, uncertain steps down the road that led nowhere but open prairie. Something in the sight pulled at him. He'd seen the look before, on miners who'd lost everything, on widows after bad winters. The look of someone fighting the world with nothing left but pride. Inside the store, Miller called, "Evening, Eli. What brings you by?" The cowboy, Eli Turner, stepped inside, still watching the door swing shut behind her. "That woman, what was she want in?" "Flour and beans," Miller replied, lowering his voice. "Didn't have the coin for both." Eli reached into his pocket, pulled out a silver dollar, and laid it on the counter. "Pack up what she needed." Miller blinked. "You don't even know her." "Don't need to," Eli said. Nobody should walk away hungry. Within minutes, Eli left the store with a small brown bundle, flour, beans, and a loaf of bread tucked inside. He glanced down the street. She was already a speck near the end of town, the wind tugging at her skirt. He called out, "Hey!" She stopped, turned, and shaded her eyes against the sun. He held up the bundle. "You forgot something." Her brow furrowed in confusion as he strode toward her, boots crunching over the dry dirt. When he reached her, he extended the package. "This yours?" he said. She shook her head. I didn't buy anything." "I know, but now you have." She looked at the package, then at him. "I can't take this." "You paid for it, didn't you?" He shrugged. "Don't matter. Call it supper owed to the good Lord for keeping me fed this long." Her lips parted, caught between gratitude and refusal. "Why would you do this?" Eli met her gaze, steady kind, no pity in it. "Because the world's already mean enough, ma'am. Don't need to add to it." For a moment, she just stared, unsure if he was real. Then, slowly, she accepted the bundle. Her fingers brushed his, rough from rope and reins, and something unspoken passed between them. "Thank you," she whispered. He tipped his hat. "Ain't nothing to thank me for. Come on, it's getting dark. I got a fire by the creek. You're welcome to share a plate." Her instinct was to refuse. The frontier wasn't kind to women who trusted too easily. But something in his tone, quiet, sure, made her believe. "I don't even know your name," she said softly. "Eli Turner," he replied. "And you, ma'am?" "Clara," she said after a pause. "Clara Monroe." Eli nodded once. "Well, Miss Monroe, come with me. I'll fill your plate tonight." They walked along the narrow trail out of town, the wind whistling through the tall grass. His horse waited by the creek, tethered near a fallen log. He unpacked a small kettle, poured water from his canteen, and started a fire. As flames crackled, shadows danced across their faces. She sat nearby, her hands folded in her lap, watching him cook. "You travel alone?" she asked quietly. "Mostly," he said, stirring the beans. "World's quieter that way." She gave a faint smile. "Quieter, but lonelier too, I imagine." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "Sometimes. But I reckon loneliness beats losing yourself in the wrong company." The firelight flickered between them. Clara lowered her gaze. "My husband used to say that. He passed last winter." Eli's hand paused mid-stir. "I'm sorry." She nodded. "The sickness came through the valley." Took the crops first, then him. I've been walking since spring, looking for work, or maybe just a place to belong. Eli said nothing for a long while. He poured coffee into a tin cup and handed it to her. Ain't much, but it'll warm you. She took it, her fingers brushing his again. You're kind, Mr. Turner. Just decent, he said simply. Kind's a word folks use when the world surprises them. It shouldn't have to. For the first time that day, Clara smiled. A small, tired smile, but real. They ate by the fire, listening to the creek's slow song. The stars stretched wide above them, endless and clear. After a while, she said quietly, I'll pay you back someday. He chuckled low. You just did. How so? You smiled. Ain't seen one of those all week. She looked at him, surprised by the warmth in his tone. You make a habit of rescuing strangers, Mr. Turner. Only when they bump into me outside stores, he said with a grin. She laughed. The sound soft and uncertain, like she'd forgotten how. For a long time, neither spoke. The fire burned lower, the night deeper. Somewhere in the dark, a coyote howled, and Eli tossed another branch onto the flames. Clara pulled her shawl tighter. You ever get tired of all this? She asked. Right in. Move in, never staying. Eli's eyes drifted toward the horizon. Sometimes, but the trail's honest. Can't say that about much else. He looked back at her, saw the weariness in her eyes, and beneath it, a spark of something fierce, something still fighting. You'll be all right, Clara, he said softly. You got the kind of strength this land respects. Her throat tightened. You think so? I know so. The words lingered between them, like a promise neither of them quite understood. When the fire burned down to embers, Eli pulled a blanket from his saddlebag and handed it to her. You take the bedroll. I'll sit up a while. I can't. Not a favor. Just fairness. He interrupted gently. You've walked far enough today. She hesitated, then nodded. Good night, Mr. Turner. Good night, Miss Monroe. As she lay down beneath the stars, she glanced at him through half-closed eyes. He sat by the fire, hat tilted low, the glow catching the edge of his jaw. For the first time in months, she felt safe. And for the first time in years, Eli felt he wasn't alone. The prairie wind whispered through the grass, carrying away the dust of old sorrows and the faint scent of coffee and hope. Neither of them knew it yet, but that night, under the wide, quiet sky, was the start of something neither the desert nor time could easily erase. Firelight and new roads. Morning came slow and gold across the prairie. Clara woke to the smell of coffee and the soft scrape of metal on metal. Eli was already up, leaning over the fire, pouring water from his tin kettle. The sun caught the dust in his hair, and for a moment he looked carved out of the light itself. You sleep all right? He asked without looking back. She sat up, brushing straw from her dress. Better than I have in months, she said honestly. Didn't think the ground could feel that soft. Eli grinned faintly. Depends who's watching over it, I guess. He handed her a tin cup. The coffee was bitter, strong, and perfect. They ate what little bread remained and watched the mist lift off the creek. A pair of horses trotted by in the distance, their silhouettes fading into the brightening hills. When they finished, Eli packed his saddlebag with quiet efficiency. Clara folded the blanket, trying not to show the sudden heaviness she felt. So, he said, cinching his horse's strap, where were you heading, Miss Monroe? South, she said after a pause. Heard there might be work near Fort Clay. Maybe a ranch that needs a cook. Eli nodded. Long way to walk. I've made it this far. He studied her face, the determination hiding behind weariness, and gave a small nod. There's a trading post 2 days from here. I can ride you part way if you like. You'll get there faster. Clara hesitated, torn between caution and gratitude. I wouldn't want to trouble you. It's no trouble, he said. Trails kinder when you share it. So she climbed up behind him on the horse, her hands uncertain until the animal started moving. The morning air was cool against her face. She could feel the steady rhythm of the horse beneath them, the warmth of Eli's coat in front of her, and for the first time in a long while, the world didn't feel so empty. By midday, they rode through open plains where the grass swayed like waves under the wind. Eli told her about his years working cattle drives, the dust storms, the long nights under the stars, and the feeling of riding for weeks with nothing but the horizon to chase. You ever get tired of running? She asked quietly. He smiled without turning. Maybe, but stopping never felt right either. What are you looking for, then? He was silent for a moment. Don't rightly know, he said finally, but when I find it, I'll know it. They reached a small ridge by sunset and made camp near a cluster of rocks that broke the wind. Clara helped gather kindling while Eli unpacked beans and coffee again. The fire lit their faces, and the night wrapped around them like an old blanket. For a while they ate in silence, listening to the coyotes sing somewhere far off. Then Clara spoke, her voice low. I used to dream about a house by the river, she said. A porch with white railings. A garden full of corn and sunflowers. My husband and I were building it bit by bit. Then the fever came, and the river dried, and everything we planted turned to dust. Eli looked into the fire. I'm sorry, Clara. She nodded, eyes reflecting the flames. I thought I'd never smile again. Then yesterday, you showed up. He stirred the embers with a stick. Sometimes the Lord sends strangers to remind us we're still here. She smiled softly. You talk like a preacher. He chuckled. Far from it. I just believe the trail's got its reasons. For a long time, they watched the fire burn low. The air grew colder, and Eli stood to throw another log on the flames. His movements were quiet, deliberate, a man who had learned patience the hard way. Clara watched him and felt something strange in her chest. Not love yet, but the faint echo of belonging. Eli, she said after a moment, what about you? Anyone waiting for you somewhere? He shook his head. Not anymore. Used to be a brother up north. He joined a posse last winter. Never made it back. Since then, I just ride. I'm sorry, she said again. He gave a small smile. Don't be. Life's a hard teacher, but it keeps teaching. The next day, the weather turned. Clouds gathered thick and gray, and the wind picked up, bringing the scent of rain. They rode through it quietly until the sky opened, pouring down in silver sheets. Eli guided the horse beneath an outcrop of rock. They huddled close, soaked but laughing. Well, Clara said through a shiver, that's one way to get clean. He laughed, a low, warm sound that startled even him. You sure know how to find trouble, Miss Monroe. Guess I attract it. They waited there until the rain eased, and when they rode out again, the world smelled new. The grass glistened, the horizon shimmered, and for a moment Clara forgot every hunger, every loss. She just felt alive. That night, they reached a small abandoned line shack, its roof half collapsed but still offering shelter. Inside, Eli built a fire and hung his coat to dry. Clara sat on a crate, hands stretched toward the warmth. He looked at her across the flickering light. You know, I've been riding alone so long, I almost forgot how to talk to someone. She smiled faintly. You do just fine. Something soft passed between them, the kind of quiet that doesn't need filling. Outside, the rain tapped gentle against the roof, and inside, the world felt safe. After a while, Eli said, tomorrow we'll reach the post. You can rest there, maybe find that ranch job. Clara looked down at her hands. And you'll keep riding, I suppose. That's the plan. She hesitated. You could stay a while. Might be they need an extra hand, too. He looked at her for a long moment, his eyes reflecting firelight. Maybe, he said softly, but the trail don't like being ignored. She turned away, biting her lip. Then I hope it leads you somewhere good. Dawn came pale and cold. They rode the last miles in silence, the kind that says more than words could. When the first buildings of the trading post appeared through the haze, Clara's heart sank a little. Eli dismounted, helped her down, and handed her the small bundle of food left from his saddlebag. This'll get you started, he said. There's a woman named Mrs. Harlan runs the boarding house over there. Tell her Eli sent you. Clara looked up at him, eyes glistening. You're leaving, then? He nodded. Can't sit still too long. Makes the world catch up. She reached out suddenly, touching his arm. Eli, you gave me more than a meal. You gave me back something I thought I'd lost. What's that? He asked. Hope. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The wind tugged at his hat brim, carrying the smell of rain and wood smoke between them. Then, without a word, Eli tipped his hat, turned, and swung onto his horse. He rode out toward the open plain, his figure growing smaller against the endless sky. Clara watched until he disappeared into the light. Then she turned toward the town, clutching the bundle close to her heart. Weeks passed. The ranch near Fort Clay didn't need a cook, and Clara took the job. Life was slow but steady again, the rhythm of dawn fires, bread baking, and laughter from the ranch hands at supper. Every evening, she'd look westward at the horizon, half expecting to see a rider coming through the dust. And one evening, months later, she did. The sun was low, the air thick with the scent of hay and rain when a horse appeared on the ridge. Her heart skipped. The rider dismounted, walking toward her with that same easy stride she remembered. Didn't think the trail would bring you back, she said softly, smiling through the tears already forming. Eli tipped his hat, a faint grin tugging his mouth. Promised I'd stop by and see if the place turned green again. It has, she whispered. He looked around, the porch she'd built, the rows of corn sprouting by the river, the soft smoke from the kitchen chimney. You done all this? With a little help, she said, stepping closer. You hungry, Mr. Turner? His grin widened. Depends what's on the plate. Beans, she said, and bread. Same as before. He nodded. Reckon that sounds just right. As the evening fell, they sat on the porch, watching the last of the sun melt into gold over the river. Two souls who had once met in dust and hunger now sat in quiet peace, their paths no longer separate. And as the first stars blinked awake above the plains, Clara turned to him and said, You kept your promise. Eli looked at her, his eyes warm beneath the brim of his hat. And you kept yours. She smiled. Which one was that? That there be a plate waiting for me. He laughed softly, and the sound carried out over the wide, forgiving land. A sound of peace, of finding home after miles of wandering. because in the wild, hungry West, sometimes all it took was a single act of kindness to change two lives forever.